Today we're going to be talking about the listing process. We're going to go A to Z on the listing process. Right now, listings are probably worth about, what would you guys say, 5-10 times what a buyer's worth right now?
Oh yeah, in terms of your time and everything?
Yeah, in terms of time, in terms of, likelihood of everything, about 10 times?
10 times.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're going to focus on listings because it's really important. And plus, it's important for me that everybody get viewed a certain way as a member of Montreal's elite real estate group, that everybody has the same kind of etiquette and the same strategy across the board when it comes to listing a property. Obviously, there's variables that will change from time to time, but globally, I want everything to feel and look the same because I want them to know, like, this is an elite listing, both literally and figuratively. So, what's the first thing? What's the first thing you do when you want to list a property? First thing.
You got the listing, or
I don't know.
you want to get
I don't
the
know.
listing?
Maybe you want to, maybe you, I don't know. There's no wrong answers here.
Sign them?
Yeah, so you got to sign them, but before you actually sign them, you got to go see them, right?
Yeah.
So the first thing that you're going to want to do is you're going to want to tour the property. That's number one. You go for a tour of the property. There's certain things that you're going to want to do and certain things you're not going to want to do. One of the things my dad always told me is every time you compliment somebody, the price of the property goes up by $5,000. Example given. Wow, you have a beautiful bathroom. Although it's probably extremely true, they do have a beautiful bathroom. Let's be honest, it's not as nice as the bathroom that you went to see when you saw the property for $5 million, right? Right. So is it that beautiful? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. Just be careful with the compliments because every single time you say what amazing basement they have, what an amazing bathroom they have, in their head they're like, yeah, it is great. We should charge more.
That's why my clients are
and especially in a market like this, it doesn't matter what you set the price. You could list a property for $1 and it's going to sell for what it would have sold for no matter what you price it at in this market. It matters a lot more. What I'm going to tell you, certain things matter more in a different style of market. But for right now, unless you're overpriced, you do. And the reason, can you share with me why you believe that it's a big problem to be overpriced in this market?
Because people also believe that everything is going above the asking price.
Yep.
So, like with a lot of my buyers, if their budget is like 500, I'm not sending them anything over 450.
Yes.
Also. So
Good
your
point.
property is not even going to be seen
Wow.
by
Yep.
the people who come buy it
Yep.
if you're overpriced.
Great point. Yep.
Yeah.
Great point. The only thing I'll add to that, and that's the main thing, of course, the only thing I'll add to that is that if you list a property at, let's say, $750 when it really should be listed at $625 or $650, that person is not even going to write you an offer of $625 or $650 because they're just like, well, I don't want to offend anybody.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because they know the market is so crazy, they're not going to want to step on any toes. They're not going to want to piss anybody off. They're just going to go to the next one that makes sense. And they're gonna fight over the other one. In reality, whether that's right or wrong is a different conversation. But all in all, that's kind of one of the global problems of overpricing. So we want to be careful of that when we're touring the property. Things can be interesting, things can be great, things can be very, whatever the words you want to use. But obviously, try not to blow it up in your face a little bit, right? So you tour the property, you keep all that in mind, you notch up in rapport, you notch up in expertise. We talked about that before. What does that mean? Who wants to go first? What is notching up in rapport? Give me an example for notching up in rapport. I'll let Marty take this one. What's notching up in rapport?
You go in the furnace room, you tell them, oh, you have this type of furnace, oh, you have oil, we might need to retrofit for electric, and you drop some names.
What Marty's talking about is notching up in expertise.
Yeah.
So that's awesome. Notching up in rapport. What would that look like? Connor, hit me.
I wish I knew.
Okay.
It's more like personal.
It is, absolutely.
Like a yoga mat.
Exactly. There you go.
You can do with drums and guitars.
Yeah, exactly. When I see any musical instruments, I'm going to use that as a way to notch up in rapport. I'm like, oh, who plays the guitar? Now you got to be careful, right? You got to be careful. I always ask, who plays guitar? And then if they say, my dead uncle or something like that, then I back off on that real fast. You know what I mean? Because I've made that mistake. I have made that mistake many times. Was it with you?
Yeah, it was with me.
Man, it was funny, dude. It was like such a noob moment on my part. It was like the most amateur shit I've ever done ever. We were at this home evaluation with this guy and we were doing the tour and he had these really beautiful sneakers on like a mantle of some kind, like a fireplace mantle or something. And it was in the basement, so I didn't really didn't think it was like a thing that was super important. I was like, oh, sick, you play basketball. I'm thinking like, oh, I'm notching up in rapport, I'm gonna kill this. I'm like, I played basketball growing up. And he was like, he said it's something like it was his late son's shoes that he kept. And I was like, well, not getting this listing, like, and I feel like shit for the rest of my week. You know what I mean? It was horrible. It was absolutely horrible.
We didn't get it. I remember.
We did not get it. We absolutely did not get it because I'm a giant noob. That's why. So yeah, you learn a lesson. So that's why I always ask, like, oh, did somebody play? You know, who's the basketball player? And then he would have said, my son, oh my God, I'm so sorry about that, or whatever. I could have, instead of jumping all over it, you know, overselling. So I asked, oh, who plays guitar? Oh, who's the musician in the family? And then you can have conversations.
So it's like trying to make.
Now I use kids. You know, as soon as I say I just had a child, they're like, oh my God, babies. You know what I mean? They're like, then when I show them a photo of Avery, they're like, holy crap, that's the cutest kid of all time. I'm like, nailed it, got this business, easy. So imagine, like, yeah, thank goodness. Yeah, thank goodness. So yeah, and to Marty's point, notching up in expertise is if you go into the furnace room and you can identify this is probably either a heat pump or AC unit, or you go in and it's an oil furnace and you ask if they've got plans to retrofit it in the future or whatever, things like that. You know, you see the granite countertop and you can isolate that it's granite and not quartz. You know, you understand that the cabinets are wood, they're not thermoplastic. You see that this is floating floor, it's not hardwood. And you make these distinctions in front of them and they're like, holy crap, this guy knows what he's talking about. That's powerful stuff, really, really powerful stuff. So you notch up both of those, you sit down, you close them, right? We're not gonna go into the sales aspect of actually closing for the listing. That's definitely a separate training. But then, okay, so now you've closed them. Now the process really starts. So what's next? What do you do next?
Book your photographer.
Yeah, absolutely. So the main thing that I do first before I book anything is you got to set expectations with the seller. So you've heard me say this before. Have you guys ever went to Costco and banged on the door at 3 a.m. trying to buy eggs? No, because they're not working at that time. And you know that. How do you know that? Because the expectations of when that business is open are set. So when I was hardcore in production, what I used to tell them is I used to say, listen, part of my strategy for getting you buyers for your property is I'm going to be lead generating in the morning. I'm going to be on the phones hammering my database, looking for buyers for your property and my other properties that I have listed for that matter. So from 9 to 12 in the morning, I'm unavailable. And I'll tell you what, if you call me between 9 and 12 in the morning and I answer, I want you to fire me on the spot. Can I get your commitment on that, Marty? And they're like, this guy's a fucking psycho. But they like it. They're like, yeah, cool, that's awesome. And they're not gonna call you during lead generation time. So now you've created a sanctuary around your lead generation time in the morning from 9 to 12. And your listing's not gonna bother you at that time. And then you tell them, I'm always gonna have my phone on me during the day. Even if I don't answer, I know that you've called and I will call you as soon as I can back. I'm probably just in another meeting. If you call me after 9, I'll return your call the next day. But you have to have that conversation. Now, do you have that conversation before they sign? No. Hell no. You have the conversation afterwards. You set the expectations so they know what it is, right? They've agreed to do business with you because they like your marketing strategy, they like the cut of your jib, whatever it might be. But they've agreed to do business with you. Now you have to set the expectations of what it's going to be like to do business with you. So what are some other expectations that should be set that I may have forgotten? Over communication is really important, right? So you should set expectations around the photographer. You should set expectations around the sign runner, stuff like that.
Normally visits, I mean, not
Yeah.
so
Exactly.
much in this market, but
Exactly.
like visits that you don't have to be there all the time, like I was in Riviera,
Yes.
which was so horrible.
Yes. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So setting expectations around the lockbox is really important as well.
The logbox.
So in general, there's so many things to talk about, right? So it's setting expectations, but it's setting expectations about every single step of the way. And you can't forget any of these things. And as a newer broker, you probably will, and that's totally fine. Don't stress about it, like it's fine. But as you get better and more experienced, you're gonna forget less and less, and you're gonna go through everything with them, right? So the first thing let's talk about is setting expectations for the photographer. So that's why we print out that little extra thing that goes with your listing package now that says this is how to prepare for the photographer. Because ideally you don't want to have to show up if you don't have to.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You should be out signing another listing. You should be out selling another property, showing buyers, whatever it is. You know what I mean? So that's really not a great use of your time from like a financial perspective. So, hi Francis. Alex, can you put him in the room? Thank you. Yeah, so set the expectation for the photographer. Show them that, tell them this is what you need to do, walk them through it all. And then it won't be a surprise when they get there and the photographer is going to come in. It's going to be a much smoother process for the photographer as well, which is great. Set the expectation for the sign runner. They might think that you're coming with the sign, right? Which is fine, I guess. But again, you're trying to avoid disappointment, right? Disappointment and anger happens when expectations are not met, right? But if you tell them our sign runner is going to be coming probably within the next 48 hours, and he's going to put it right in the middle, like right there, and it's going to look like this or whatever. And you have that conversation so that they're not like, well, where were you today? You just put up the sign and left. And you're going to be like, no, that was the sign runner. His job is just to come and put up the sign. I don't come for that. And they're like, well, it's not very personal touch or whatever it is. You know what I mean? Now you've had that conversation, they're expecting it, which is great. Again, managing the expectations is really, really important. So then it comes to managing the expectations of the schedule of the visits, right? So again, this is something that is a little more malleable, right? Because depending on the pricing strategy that you went with, it could dictate what's going to go on with your visit schedule, right? If you know you priced it well, you're going to tell them what I think you're going to tell them, which is that you're going to do visits through the weekend, and you're going to be looking at offers on Monday and Tuesday, or Tuesday, I should say, right? Now, if you agreed to a price that maybe was their idea and not yours, that strategy might change. It might not be a visit Saturday, Sunday, we're looking at offers on Monday. It might be more of a, we're going to see how it goes. You got to be ready for visits whenever. In a different market, in a normal market, when it's more centered around a balanced buyers and sellers, that will have to be explained. You're going to have to tell them that at a moment's notice, within 24 hours, somebody could come and want to visit your property. We have to make sure that the property is show ready pretty much at all times. We're going to do our best to make sure that this thing's done just within a couple of weeks, so that you guys aren't put out for super long, right? So managing the expectations around the schedule, and you got to be careful with this too, right? You got to be very confident, because nothing's worse than setting expectations, saying that, we're going to have the visits over the weekend and we're going to have offers by Monday and Tuesday, and then Monday and Tuesday roll around and it's crickets.
Yeah.
Nothing's worse than that. Nothing's more embarrassing than that, because then you have to have a conversation where you have to say, I'm sorry, I was wrong. And that's tough.
Yeah.
Right? So, okay, so you managed all the expectations, right? You're confident, you've laid down the lay of the land for the seller. What happens next? What happens after that? The photographer comes, the sign runner comes, then what?
Documents, get all the documents.
Thank you. Documents. This is something that even at your first meeting, you should have a list of everything. Okay? So, what are those things? John, don't say anything. Shout them out one at a time.
What sale?
Deed of sale. Certificate of location. Deed of loan, all right. What's next?
Taxes.
Which ones? Both? Okay. Municipal and school taxes, absolutely.
Condo.
Yeah. If it's a condo, we're going to need the minutes of the meeting. We're going to need the declaration of co-ownership. What was that?
Yeah.
Yes, proof of contingency fund if you have it, or the IS.
For the condo listings, I see they always have a condo declaration. What is that?
Declaration of co-ownership.
Yeah.
So in order to get approved to divide,
It's like normal, no? Why
Yeah.
would I need to load it?
Oh, you don't have to. Upload
well, you
it.
don't have to upload it. They upload it because they're,
Okay,
I guess
that
they're
was my
sticklers
question.
or whatever. No, you don't have to upload it. Like it's still within the buyer's rights to review it if they say they want to review it.
Okay.
But yeah, the declaration of ownership is
So I don't really
usually
need it.
pretty standard.
Yeah.
If it's a weird condo or if it's a condo that's been redone top to bottom, let's say, then the declaration of ownership might be a little different. But 9 times out of 10, they're reading that to see if they can bring their dog.
Okay.
Like 9 times out of 10, they're like, I want to see the declaration of ownership because I want to see like pets are forbidden. Damn it, But yeah, 9 times out of 10, that's what it's about. So you got all the documents. What else? Now what do you do?
You already have the contract?
What's that?
You already have the contract?
Yep, the contracts are signed. Everything's good. You got all the documents from them. Contracts are signed. Seller's declaration signed. Everything's signed. What do you do?
Digitally scan them and put them in the system. in there? So you're supposed to be.
Everything gets put in a beautiful little file folder and either scanned and put into the Google Drive,
Google Drive.
or if you're very lucky, Alex might scan it for you.
I'll do it all.
So just give the documents to Alex because you'll probably fuck it up. Give the documents to Alex, she'll scan it all, she'll put it in the Google Drive for you, she'll make sure it's all nice and tidy, nice and organized and everything like that. And the great thing too is if you did forget something, which newer agents you will forget, like you're gonna forget some shit, and that's totally fine. She'll know, because she knows. She's the all-seeing, all-knowing power of administration. So, so she'll know. So she's scanning everything like that, and then as soon as she sees that there's something missing, she's gonna be like, hey, what's the deal? Or maybe she goes into the broker loading, she's doing the broker loading for you, and she realizes, holy crap, this person's not the real owner, or there needs to be a declaration of transmission, or something like that. She's gonna let you know, which is great.
Should we be checking to see if there's liens on the house on every property?
Yeah, so yeah, well, I'm on camera, so yes. Every single property you need to check. Listen, at the end of the day, it's I'll level with you. It's a trust thing. Like if they're referrals of yours, and you go and they seem totally fine, it's probably fine. You know what I mean? If we were in a different market and it was terrible out there, prices were plummeting, and this guy bought a condo last year and now he's calling you to sell it, yeah, you're gonna want to make sure that there's enough juice to not only pay you, but to actually be able to sell it and not be upside down. Because nothing's worse than selling something but the seller having to bring a check to the notary just to be able to sell the property. That's the worst thing in the world. So, but it happens. It really does happen. Not so much here. It happens a lot in the States though. So, but yeah, in theory, yes. In reality, yes and no. Like if I go visit somebody who calls me and he says he's got a 60-day notice, like, yeah, I'm gonna double check to make sure like what that amount is and see if there's liens and stuff like that. But if somebody calls me and they're a middle-aged person in a property in Beaconsfield, I'm probably not gonna check. I know I should, but I'm just leveling with you. That's what's going on there.
They just asked me, I'll take the day.
That's weird. It unzoomed for some reason. Interesting. So then visits start happening, right? So now let's rewind. Let's pretend that it's not this market, because this market creates really bad habits for people.
Yeah.
So let's pretend that it's not this market. Let's say that there's going to be 2 weeks of visits before there's offers. And let's say there's only going to be 2 offers at the end, okay? So what do you think would be common practice for visits? Walk me through that. You got a visit scheduled on Monday. Walk me through your Sunday, Monday, Tuesday then.
What do you mean?
Like, so you've got a visit scheduled Monday at 2 p.m. What does your Sunday look like? What does your Monday look like? What does your Tuesday look like with regards to that specific visit? Hit me.
Call your clients to make sure that they're not home.
Bang, done. You want to make sure that they're going to either be there to open the door, and there might be there to open the door, and then they go into their car and FO for a little while. And that's totally cool as well, right? But you want to make sure that they're available to receive that person or that realtor, or that, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you want to make sure that they're good for that. Awesome. That's what you should definitely do on the Sunday. What do you do on the Monday?
If there's a lockbox, we'll contact the broker texting them about the lockbox.
Yeah, it should go in the email contacts. Yeah, but you're right on the money in terms of after the visit. What I like to do is I like to almost immediately follow up with the agent, like that evening. Like if they saw it at 2 p.m., I'll call the agent at 6. How'd your client like the property?
Yeah.
This is a normal market. You don't do that in this market because it's crazy. But in a normal market, that's what you do. You call and say, hey, how'd your client like the property? What did they think about that? What was their least favorite thing about it? Are they going to be writing an offer? All that kind of stuff, right? And then what do you do with that information?
Tell the seller.
Hell yeah, absolutely. This is exactly what I'm talking about when I say that the quality of your guys' career is going to be based on the amount and the frequency of the difficult conversations you're willing to have. So this is a prime example of that. So you get a call, you called it, again, normal market, right? They're not just like throwing offers at anything that moves. So you reach out to the person that saw the property, the broker, and they say, yeah, my client didn't really like the property. Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that. What didn't they like about it? Well, the kitchen was really closed off and it was in the corner. We didn't like that. We were looking for something maybe a little bit more airy, a little bit more open. And we thought that there was going to be another basement in the split. And you just have the one. You just have the garage level. You don't have the basement level in your split. And so I'm like, oh crap, that's probably my bad because I didn't, either write that or explain that in the listing or whatever it might be. I'm like, okay, fair enough. So that's feedback. I have to deliver that feedback now to the seller. So I have to call the seller and basically, in a nutshell, tell this seller that their house is no good. At least no good for that person. So try your best not to sugarcoat this. Really try your best not to sugarcoat it.
Really?
Yeah, really try your best. Because honesty is always the best policy. Don't don't overdo it. Don't literally tell them, well, guess what?
Price reduction.
Guess what? House sucks. We got to take a $25,000 reduction. No, of course not. I'm not advocating for that. But I am advocating that you relay the message as it was told to you.
Would you, to get bad news, would you write it down or would you just tell them? Like, you know, the feedback?
Both.
Okay.
So I like an immediate relay of the information over the phone, and then maybe like a weekly summary of what the visits were and what the feedback was for the listing.
Okay.
So, for instance, somebody said kitchen was small and in the corner and there was no basement. So I would say, listen, got some kind of bad news for you. They didn't like the property. They're not going to be writing an offer. And the reason is because they found that the kitchen was a little bit too small for them and tucked away in a corner. They're looking for something a little bit more open for entertaining. As well, some of the models of your split have that second basement and yours doesn't. So they were a little disappointed in that. And of course, and you can even start seeding if you want. You can say, of course, I don't think they would care if it was at a different price point, but I think because we're asking very close to what the other splits were selling for, they kind of expected that second basement. Does that make sense? The seller says, yeah, okay, perfect. Anyway, no worries. I'll let you know how the next visit goes. You know, you don't have to go for the price reduction right away.
No.
You know, not at all. Like, because one visit does not make the market, right? So give it time. Don't rush that kind of stuff, you know? So yeah, that's the feedback. That's the protocol. Now, fast forward to today, because it's a totally different market, right? So fast forward to today, are you going to call the broker and ask if his clients like the property? Probably not, because you're expecting him to send you feedback via email contact anyways, because most of them do, and they say, if they're going to write an offer, they're going to write an offer. Absolutely.
But if they're not, they don't send the feedback,
they don't.
which
Sometimes.
we don't really care.
No, we don't
And
care
I
because
don't
we're getting
send
an
the
offer.
feedback. Like if somebody's like his visit schedule is all fully booked
Yeah.
and he's already saying we have an offer, we have 2 offers, we have 3 offers, I'm not gonna send him a feedback saying we're not making an offer.
Yeah.
Like,
This
that's-
is why.
Yeah, exactly. Just so your sellers know.
Yeah,
Like,
they didn't like the kitchen, like they don't care. They have 5 offers.
exactly. So
Well, kinda
It's good practice.
it's good practice to do it, but
I
like
feel like an asshole.
No, again,
you're
like,
right. You're
again,
right.
this market's very different, right? So like it's fine. Like there's no wrong way to do it, you know?
Yeah.
Good habits are
It's
good
just that they
habits.
don't care at that point.
Yeah,
Like,
they're not
if
gonna
they
read it.
have
They're
all
probably not
these
gonna read it. They're
offers,
gonna scroll down to the bottom, see the word no, and move on.
That's it.
And that's
yeah.
fine. So in this market, the idea is going to be a little bit different. So no, you're not going to give individual feedback, right, to your seller. What are you going to do? You're going to accumulate the offers.
Yeah.
Okay. What are you going to do with those offers? We're going to get into negotiating a little bit. A couple little tactics I can share with you guys to try and get the price up a little bit. One of them I used for my own property that I sold recently, and the one before that. It's because it was used on me on my first ever transaction. It's going to be a good story. So. Yes. So let's say you did the weekend of visits. You got the Monday. Offers coming in between 7 and 8 p.m. on Monday. So the best thing you can possibly do, you get offer 1, what do?
You send a notice. to
Yes,
everybody.
sir. Notice everybody. Notify everybody,
Yeah.
unless specifically asked not to. Sometimes brokers are like, I'm good. Stop sending me notifications from
They
the
can
property.
unsubscribe
Yeah,
now.
yeah,
And
they
these
can.
people
Oh,
annoy
that's
me
great.
so much. I'm like, you know, like we're in the middle of all this and you're like, I don't want to get notices. Like unsubscribe yourself.
That's great. That's
You
I
tell them.
absolutely love that they added that feature. That's really smart.
Yeah,
Back in the day, she wasn't like this.
What?
You're savage now.
No.
Like, oh.
She's a no bullshit kind of
I
gal.
love it.
So yeah, so you want to send notices as soon as the first offer comes in. Second offer comes in, same thing. Third offer, same thing. All the way. You never stop sending notices.
And
Why?
it's nice
Because
to
it
say,
creates a panic.
Yeah, and it's nice to say send your offer or enhancements.
Exactly. Thank you.
Oh,
Exactly.
That's a good one.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's absolutely key because it creates a panic.
Yeah.
It creates excitement. You know, what we used to have to do in a shitty market is we'd have to clamor everybody into the same open house to create that idea that it was like this market.
Yeah.
You know, that was the idea, is we would list on, let's say, a Wednesday, and we wouldn't do any visits until the Sunday open house, just none of them.
Yeah.
We'd try and pack them all in from 2 to 4. So it would give the appearance like it was like a market like this one.
Yeah.
That's what we used to have to do.
Yeah.
Now, it doesn't matter. People know. People know that it's a crazy market, so they're going to do that. So you notify them after offer 1, offer 2, 3, 4, all the way till, it doesn't matter. There could be 20 offers. You do a notification on every single one of them. You know, so maybe you miss one, maybe you notify them for 3 and then 3 come in simultaneously. It's all good. Send them, you're at 6 offers now. Please send more offers and or your enhancements as soon as possible or before whatever the delay is, right? So then, now it's up to you guys to really prove your value, because anybody can do what we just described, pretty much. You know, what's gonna set you apart is, of course, how the listing is viewed online. That's gonna be different because we have a different photographer than somebody else. We have a different creative writer than other people, and how we present our listing is going to be the most important thing because everybody shops online, right? So that's one way we're set apart. The other way we're set apart is how we negotiate. Okay, and again, in this market, it's a little easier because sometimes there's just one offer that just blows everybody away.
Yeah.
Example given, John wrote an offer. God, it was about a month ago. And it was a great offer. It was the one on, yeah, I know, Lols. No, so it was the one with Brian and Jackie where they, it was the one in Point Claire, the one with the double garage. Elson's.
Oh yeah, Theater.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
649 offers clumped around 750 at the house.
Yeah.
And then just someone blew it out of the water with an 840.
840. So with something like that, that's an exception to the rule I'm about to talk about.
Yeah.
You don't mess around with the 840. You just accept it and move on.
Yeah.
But if, let's say, the offer stayed clumped at around the mid-7s, like John just described, then it's up to you to play the game. Then it's up to you to call the agents with the best offers. So what would be the best offers? What are the parameters we're looking at? What are the parameters?
That's
The
conditions.
pre-approval.
Yep, pre-approval.
Make sure
Very
that
important.
they can actually enhance, like
Absolutely.
if you're gonna be trying to get
Exactly.
more money.
Yep.
What
So
I,
their pre-approval, what other parameters are we looking at in an offer?
for sure the delays and the conditions.
Exactly. Delays. What conditions? We gotta talk plainly for everybody here.
Like inspection, let's say if there's offers with no inspection.
Yeah, if
that's-
there's an inspection, if there's no inspection, for
Yeah.
sure that plays. To me, a no inspection clause is valued at between $10,000 and $15,000.
Yeah,
You know, because like, you know, anything can happen in an inspection. You just don't like. Are you gonna risk it? I don't know. Personally, I wouldn't. For me, that's worth about 10, 15 grand.
and notary date occupancy, the
Yes.
ones that are most.
Absolutely, very, very
aligned.
important. Yeah. What else? We're missing one that I really want to touch on.
The financing.
Kind of in that realm.
Like cash offer? No.
Down payment.
Yes, down payment. Thank you so much. Yes, nailed it. Nailed it, Connor. So yeah, down payment, super important. I mean, listen, if somebody is writing me an offer, let's say it's 700, all of them are around 700. One of them is 700, and they're putting $35,000 down,
Mm,
and another one is coming in with $350,000 down, and they're pre-approved for like 800. I'm like, okay, well,
Yeah.
this is obviously the one I want to go through.
yeah,
You know, so you try and isolate which ones are the top contenders. Try and find 3 or 4 if you can, if it's a crazy property. If not, you find 2, not a big deal. So one of my first properties I ever sold was in Point Claire, and I'm blanking on Christine McDowell was the listing broker, and she was the listing broker. I was the collaborating broker, and it was hilarious because I went and I delivered the offer, and she basically said, "Okay, well, we have a couple offers, so we're not going to answer you." I'm like, "I'm going to wait in my car." And this was, by the way, this is before e-sign. This is before anything, right?
Yeah.
I was just like, I'm going to wait in my car because I want to be here. I want to close this deal with you. I can get a verbal acceptance of whatever you need changed right away. Is anybody else doing that? She's like, no, they're not. I'm like, great. I'm going to wait in my car. Either call me or come knock on my window when you're ready. So I just, dude, I was hungry, dude. This is my first ever sale. I was starving.
Yeah.
So I was waited in my Chevrolet Lumina from 1998 And I just sat in the car and waited, and then sure enough, I got the call. They're like, "Would your clients go for this?" I'm like, "Let me call them. I'll call you right back." So I called them. Yes, perfect. So I went in, got the counter offer signed, done deal. The second, I swear to you, the second the counter offer was signed, she gets a call from the other agent saying they're willing to go higher than the counter offer they just signed to us. And Christine McDowell, she was such a boss. She was just like, "Sorry, you snooze, you lose." Click. I was like, "Lol." It was so fun. It was a great story. But like all that to say, the joke was, you know, she countered that, but she pitted us against each other. And in my case, you know, I was just the hungrier younger guy, and that's why I won. But you can do that yourself as well. Like if you have the top 3 offers, you can call all of them and say, "You're in the top 3. Whoever enhances is going to win."
Yeah.
You know, and this is how you make your client another 10, 15 grand.
Yeah.
Of just free money that they didn't know they needed or wanted. You know what I mean? God, why don't we work on tips for these extra monies we're making them? That'd be incredible. But yeah, it's awesome. So you say, listen, you're neck and neck with 2 other offers. You know, you're allowed to say that. You can't tell them the exact amount. You can't say that. You cannot say that. But you can say, listen, we're between you and a couple of them based on price, conditions, things like that. Bring me an enhancement. Bring me something. Bring me something where I can present it to my clients and get this thing done for you. So then they're going to enhance. They're going to put 10,000 over it. They're going to put 20,000 over it. They're going to remove their inspection. They're going to do something to put themselves into a better position to get the offer accepted. Or they say, "I can't. This is my client's max. I can't do it. I want to, but I can't. They told me they cannot go a penny higher than this." You know, if you have the pre-approval, you know right away if that's total bullshit or not, right? Because if they're pre-approved up to 900,000, you know that they can go higher, but it's just a choice that they've made, and that's fine.
Yeah.
You know, but little things like that we take for granted, I think is really important, because it's something that then you need to communicate what you did with your clients. This is something that I think everybody misses such a huge opportunity with, is they just did this miraculous feat of getting an extra 10, 15, 20, $30,000 for the client, and they don't boast. And I don't mean to use that word in any kind of negative connotation whatsoever. I really mean it like you should be boasting. You did an amazing service for this couple, this client, whatever. You deserve to say, "Hey, by the way, I think a normal broker probably would have just accepted that to one of those top 3 offers.
Yeah.
I put them against each other and got you an extra $15,000." And just like leave that there. Don't say anything. Just leave that there.
Yeah.
And then you're gonna hear this weird silence for a second, and then they're gonna be like,
Mic drop.
"Yeah," and they're gonna say, "Wow, Susan, that's awesome. Thank you so much." And then if you didn't have that conversation, maybe you wouldn't have created a raving fan. But because you had that conversation, you just created somebody that's going to talk you up for the rest of their lives. And I think that's a huge, huge difference maker there. So where am I at with everything here? So then it's all accepted. You've managed the expectations. Expectations have been met. Everybody's happy. Everybody's good. And the inspection rolls around.
Ugh, my least favorite day.
Hey, me too. I hate inspections so much. I'm obviously very comfortable with inspections because I flip properties for a living. I know everything that this inspector is saying. I just hate so many of them. And yeah, I don't care. I'll say it. I hate most of how they communicate with clients. I hate the fear mongering, all that stuff. At the end of the day, I learned, this is another lesson that I learned. One of my first flips was in Kirkland. It was a terrible, terrible flip. Awful. One of my worst. And this was when it was a really heavy buyer's market. So flipping in a buyer's market is obviously a little bit more difficult. But the inspector was just on my last nerve. He was looking at the sump pit and how it exits. And yeah, it wasn't to code. But a lot of properties built in the late 60s, early 70s had this thing where, you know, instead of it being pumped into the exit for the house, it was immediately just getting dumped into the sewer drain. So it wasn't technically allowed. But he's like, "Oh, this is a huge problem, this, that, and this." And I was like, and I lost it on him. I was like, "What are you even talking about? Like, everybody on the street has exactly this setup. How do you not know this?" And by doing that, I just killed the whole deal. keep in mind I was like 22 at the time or something, you know what I mean? I just didn't know. When you don't know, you don't know, right? That's why you have people like me to show you the stupid shit that I've done so that you guys hopefully don't do the same thing.
But you could say that without getting angry, like
You could,
say,
yeah, I
like,
could.
well,
You could form it as a question.
or you could say, well, as you know, like the entire street, they have that setup. It's very common in
Exactly.
this area,
Yep.
right? And
Yeah,
like get him
exactly.
to say yes.
You got it.
I'm sure you know, like,
Exactly.
or else he's gonna be stupid. So you say like, I'm sure you know that it's very common in this area. Every
Yeah.
house on the street has it. You know that, right? Of course, right?
Yeah,
And he
exactly.
says yes, and they're
Of
like,
course.
okay,
Say
good.
yes.
Exactly.
We're supposed to say
Well,
yes.
he has to say yes.
It's
Exactly.
still in the report though.
It'll be in the report, but honestly, man, if there's one thing I've learned about building inspections, is that the report matters significantly less than the actual physical inspection.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So if they're comfortable on the day, they're dude, you honestly think they're gonna read the report?
No.
Because a good inspector.
They always read it, but what they put in the report ends up being stuff that they have to put also to protect themselves.
Yeah.
Or what they say during the inspection is the best reassurance to understand what's going on.
Exactly.
It's what they're gonna remember.
I would say 9 times out of 10, they're not gonna read the entire report front to back. They're gonna skim it,
Yeah.
and they're gonna look for the things that the guy talked about at the inspection. So, all this to say, it was a difficult lesson for me to learn because I blew up a deal because I just lost my cool. But again, I was like 20 or 22 years old or something like that, so whatever. We moved past it. But now I've learned certain etiquettes when it comes to the building inspection that I'll share with you guys. So the number one question, the only question that you need to remember and internalize is, hey, Mr. or Mrs. Inspector, any surprises? That's all.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
Any surprises so far? 99 times out of 100, the answer you're gonna get is no.
Yeah.
No, it's all normal. And that's really what you want them to say, because there might be stuff that's wrong with the property. But is it a surprise?
Yeah.
No. Yeah, like, no. Because major, no, I wanna know if it's a surprise. I wanna know if it's abnormal. I wanna know if it's out of the ordinary. I wanna know if other houses built in this exact time in this exact neighborhood have this. Because if they do, he's not gonna say it's a surprise. Because he's probably inspected ones that in the area, or at least been the same year or decade of build or whatever. So he's gonna say, no surprises, great. And then I turn to the buyers and say, no surprises, great. And I go back to my Tim Hortons. Or McDonald's coffee, sorry. So yeah, you just say, any surprises? And if he says yes, if he says, yeah, well, a couple things here and there, then you can start talking about it. And that'll depend on your level of comfort with having kind of that kind of conversation with somebody of, do you know enough to have a good conversation, or is this something where you're gonna have to just defer to an expert? Most of the time, inspectors are not gonna be able to give you any kind of idea about anything beyond just, hey, this is what this is. They're not gonna quote you, they shouldn't. If they do, you need to report them. They're not gonna quote the buyer. They're not gonna give them an idea of what things cost. They're not going to overstep whatsoever. If they see a problem with the furnace, they're gonna recommend that the buyer call an HVAC person. If they see a problem with the foundation, they're gonna recommend a foundation specialist. They're not gonna do anything beyond just looking at the property. And that's really important because that's how you calm everybody down if there is something that would be a surprise. So let's say if you're in Point Claire, there's a crack in the foundation and it's not heavy deviation, but it's a little bit of deviation, right? So yeah, I would say that's a surprise. But the buyer might be thinking, oh my God, I'm gonna have to redo the whole foundation. It's gonna be $100,000, my life savings. And I finally got an offer accepted. But then you say, okay, well, hold on now. Like, let's talk to the inspector. Let's see who we'd recommend that we give a shout to check it out. I'll bring in Jim Allen, bring in Acton Foundation. Who's your other guy there, John? Who's your main guy? Solage Solid. Bring somebody in. Just bring somebody in who knows their shit. So they come in, they look at the cracks, and say, oh yeah, 2 Gs. And everyone's like, oh, okay, damn. I thought it was gonna be $100,000. No, it's 2 Gs. Okay, awesome. And everything's good. So you kind of your job is to just make everything nice and smooth with the inspection.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, if there's something terrible, there's something terrible. Like if the house is literally falling apart, it's literally falling apart. What are you supposed to do about that? Nothing. Even as the listing broker, the idea is that you're mediating both parties as best as you can, right? So if it is something terrible, like let's say one of the trusses in the roof is completely broken, and it's just a matter of time before the roof collapses, like yeah, that's a fairly big issue. You're going to need a structural engineer. You're going to need this, that, and the other thing. All that matters is it's almost impossible to find a problem with a house that's not solvable. I've never found one. I'm sure they exist. I've just never found one.
How would you handle if there's mold in the attic or something?
Yeah.
Or maybe how would you handle that though?
So mold in the
Because I
attic.
get that a lot.
Yeah, so mold in the attic is super normal. But the one thing to reiterate, and I'll say this plainly on camera, is that the air in the attic never goes to the house.
Okay.
The air in the attic circulates within the attic, and that's it. So in terms of, oh, mold, it's going to affect my children.
Yeah,
Can't you
that's
think of the
exactly
children? No, if it's in the attic, it's not a big deal because it's only circulating in the attic. Is it a problem? Sure. Is it something that's fixable? Hell yeah.
Okay.
We flipped that property that Phil found us on Woodlawn or Woodland or something in DDO. Excuse me. And it had mold in the attic. Not a big deal. We paid $3,000 to remove it. So a company comes in, they spray this kind of like foam bleach thing, and it just murders all the mold. No.
I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah.
And do they have to like reinstall like the vent in the attic for that or no?
Sometimes it is a ventilation issue. That's very smart to ask because the idea with mold, and this is again, I'm deviating into a different training right now, but the idea with mold is that mold is a living organism.
Yeah.
So it needs food to survive. The food that it uses is moisture. So if there's no moisture in a place, if it's 100% dry, it can't live, it'll die. So in theory, if you spray it down, you may have killed it all, which is great. But if there's still a moisture problem in the attic, it's gonna come back, it's just a matter of time.
Yeah.
So it could be just, this is a maintenance thing you gotta do every 10 years. You know, $300 a year basically is you gotta get rid of the mold in the attic. You know, it could be that, but it could be solved with some maxi vents like Connor brought up, a couple maxi vents. It could be solved with opening up maybe the soffits were closed and that's what's causing the condensation or whatever. But yeah, so when it comes to that, when it comes to vermiculite, that's a different question. So vermiculite is a type of insulation, but it may contain asbestos. So obviously you get tested for asbestos. If it has asbestos, again, like if you're asking me personally, hey Logan, would you buy a house that had asbestos in the attic? I'd say, yeah, I don't care. Because again, it doesn't come into the house. Unless I'm using the attic as a place to store my Christmas stuff and I'm breathing it all the time, then you know that would be horrible and that'd be the worst. But I'm not, right? So, you know, would I buy a place with asbestos? For sure I would, right? It's like they have also asbestos tape on some vents, you know, so you can spray that with a black rubber. You can cut both sides of the vent and replace it with another piece. That's probably a good solution as well. But again, everything's solvable. So for the inspection, you just want to say any surprises, you know, anything. And then follow-up question could be, would you consider this to be a major problem? You know, emphasize the word major, like major, you know? And the guys are probably gonna be like, no, that's fine. You know, and as soon as you get that okay, because I find a lot of times the inspectors kind of play things a little bit too close to their chest too often. You know, I wish they would just tell the clients plainly, like, oh, don't worry about this. Because they don't, and they're like, well, this is this. And the client's like, oh my God. And if they would just say like, oh no, it's like $10, don't worry about it.
That's why Sam is good,
Yeah, Sam's great, Sherlock's awesome, big fans of these guys.
You always say walk behind them and say, that's like yourself as the agent. That's
Yeah.
like $10, $15, right?
Yeah, you can ask them the right question on that, especially when they're talking about the GFCIs.
Light shit.
Yeah, all that stupid electrical stuff is so easy. So, okay, so let's say the inspection goes through, everything's good. Now, the next bit of etiquette that's really important is with the notary. So over communication with the notary is super, super important as well, because you don't want to be in a position where they're like, for instance, which one was it? Severo's. Where was it? Was it Severo? Somebody claimed that Alex didn't send documents to the notary. Was that Severo?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was Lake.
Yeah.
Anyway, whatever. So anyway, Severo's like, no, we sent it. She's like, no, I absolutely never got it. And Alex literally screenshots absolute proof that it was sent on the day at this time kind of thing. Now, does that fall on the responsibility of Alex? Absolutely not. This should have been Severo or the other agent on the file to reach out and make sure, hey, you got this, right? You know what I'm saying? You should be in contact with the notary a couple of times before going
That
in.
happened on the notary day.
No,
so
a couple weeks before, but it ended up pushing the notary date,
But
unfortunately.
the thing is, it was only like a couple days. Like they,
Yeah.
like it was sent one day, a couple days later. Like, well, now it's all screwed up. Like it was up to the brokers and to kind of give a little perspective. Really though, you're telling me 2 days and now changing it a week.
Yeah.
So it's important to also kind of be a little strict with your notary too, I find, because they can kind of walk all over you if you let them.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
When would you suggest that we either check in with you or from the time that we submit everything into the Google Drive?
Mhm.
When can we call the notary just to verify that they received it?
As soon as I have the notary, I send it that day. So,
Right, so within 48 hours. you
Yeah.
can call them and
Yep.
check that they-
Exactly.
yeah, as soon as I have the notary.
So yeah, just at the end of the day, I don't remember who it was that I attended a training and they used the term over communication when they were talking about real estate training, and it made perfect sense to me because I wasn't doing that at the time. It was just like, how many times do you talk to the collaborating agent in the file? Maybe 3 times, 4 times, something like that. Needs to be like triple that to have like a really nice, smooth transaction. You want to be best buddies with these guys. You know, you want to have a great relationship with the notary. You want to have a great relationship with the inspector. You want to have a great relationship with the other broker, so that you can collaborate. Because our job is to be collaborative. You know, I never understood this idea that, you know, if somebody's on the other side of a transaction for me, that they're my enemy. I never understood that. I will never understand that. You know, our job is to collaborate to make a deal happen. Because I've said this before, it's, you know, it's great. We're going to boast when we get our sellers more money. By that same token, the buyer, do you think he's going to blame the buyer's agent for having him pay an extra $15,000?
No, he got him the house.
He got him the house, right? The sale happened, got him the house, checkbox, everybody's happy, right? So the collaborative effort, even though, you know, you got the upper hand at the end, in theory, doesn't matter. All the goals were accomplished, you know? So that's it. Over communication, super important.
Small note, I just realized for notaries, they're not gonna look at a file usually unless it's a month out. So if you have something you closed a month ago and it's going in June, there's no point in calling them 48 hours later.
No, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, I forgot to note that, yeah, they won't look at.
Yeah, they won't even
Just
open
a
it.
month,
But just to make sure that they received it though, that they received the email.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can ask just proof that
But
they
they
received
won't
it.
say like what's missing, they won't know
No,
anything.
they're not gonna open it up. They're not gonna do any title searches at all until they're about a month out. You're absolutely right.
But good to know that the email actually got there, and then from there it's a notary's process.
Exactly. You got it.
Wait, you ask in your email, like, can you
Please confirm receipt.
receipt?
At the end of it, it's my fault, because I have a
Yeah.
template and it always says, and I never do they ever.
Like 5% of the time, maybe.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's at the end of every.
So
They're so busy. Like we're not. But yeah, guys. So the last thing in the listing process is sorry. Yep. Hey man, come on in. So the last part of the listing process is your client at the notary. So there's different things you can do there. You can give them a closing gift. I love that. I love doing closing gifts. One thing that my dad taught me at a very young age, which I love, is the I'm unemployed technique. It's just the best because it's hilarious, especially if you've got a good relationship with your client. It just goes over super well. Everyone's really laughing about it, kind of thing. So let's say I took your listing, you got a house, I sold it. So we're at the notary, I got you a really nice little something, maybe it's bottled champagne, maybe it's something else that I learned from you during our time together, and I got you something nice. And then at the end I'll say, well, listen, Susie, just so you know, I helped you with this property, you got it, which is great, but now I'm unemployed. I need your help to find me someone else that wants to buy property or someone else that needs to sell. Can I count on you?
I love that.
Yeah.
And they're gonna laugh. They're gonna have that exact reaction every single time. Like, oh, I get it because, right? And it's like, yeah, exactly. That's why it's funny. So you make that joke and you say, yeah, but in all seriousness though, Susie, I really enjoyed working with you. So I can only imagine how much I'm gonna enjoy working with your friends or your family. So please keep me in mind. Can I count on you to keep me in mind next time you're having a conversation about real estate with your friends or maybe your uncle or family or whoever?
Yeah.
Perfect.
Of course, yeah.
So you're okay if I call you maybe a couple weeks, 30 days, see who you've spoken to?
Sure.
Awesome. Can't wait for it. And I'm still gonna get that invite to your housewarming party, right?
I guess.
Awesome.
I guess.
I guess I feel obligated now. You gave me this bottle of champagne, so I guess we're friends. I don't know. I guess we're friends, but whatever. Fine. Maybe pay an extra 15 grand for it, didn't you though? Yeah, guys. So that's I wanted to give you guys like kind of a really like a top-down look at the listing process. We go into detail in various trainings at all these different points, right? But I think it's really good to get an overall idea of etiquette from A to Z of what's expected of you, how to manage the expectations, what to say, what not to say, you know, and I think I covered that pretty well in terms of what not to say, because I made so many mistakes in my career, you know, I'm only human, just like you guys, but hopefully you can use me as the example to, you know, not make the mistakes that I did when I was young. On that note, questions? Yes, sir.
So this is just a question for like after the notary. I know technically everything's done, but like, what would you recommend to do after the notary? Like say in like a week or two, like the 30 days.
Yeah.
You would call them and just say, hey, how's your house?
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay.
Yeah, and again, like you don't really need to overthink a lot of stuff. You can call them and say, hey, listen, you know, I've got it's your 30-day anniversary of your house. How are you liking it?
Okay.
You
So
know,
just kind of make it like
any surprises? Can I recommend anybody to help you out with anything? Anything going on? Yeah, you know, it's been weird. You know, what we really want to do, we've decided we really want to redo that bathroom on the main level. Oh, great, awesome. You know, for tiles, you should really go here. Or I might have a general contractor that can help you out if you're interested. If not, you know, no pressure, obviously. But if you're looking for some quotes, that can maybe help you out with that. Be like, oh yeah, that'd be really nice. Great. Hey, by the way, you know anybody who's looking to buy or sell real estate in the next 20 days? Use like a random number. It changes every time I say it. Sometimes it's 7 days, sometimes it's 21 days. Like, it has to be short though, because it freaks them out.
Then you're like,
you know anybody who wants to buy or sell real estate in the next 4 days? They're like 4 days. You're like, maybe 30, whatever. You know, even just like,
a 4 to 30 day range.
yeah, like somewhere in that range. What do you think? I don't know. Okay, great. Well, obviously I'm your guy though. Like I'm the guy you're gonna recommend. I'm like, yeah, for sure. Great. That's all I needed to hear. I'll follow up with you again in a little while. Great. Awesome. And then you just kind of build them. Like once you've sold them a property, they add to your sphere. And how you manage your sphere is, again, I'm deviating into a different training, but how you manage your sphere is really important, man. Nurturing that shit is a beautiful science, to be honest. You know, you're creating everlasting relationships where you're expecting, you know, you're doing things for them. You're their resource when it comes to anything they need with their house, whether it be a bathroom renovation or a pool quote or a plumber or a carpenter or a hardwood floor store or whatever. You're their guy. And you want to make that very clear. In exchange for that service, you want to be their friend. You want to have them recommend you to their friends and family, because it's true. Like, dude, don't say this if you don't mean it. Like, if it was a shitty transaction, do not talk to them like it was a great transaction. If it was a shitty transaction, put them away. Do not add them to your sphere. You do not want that problem moving forward. You only want to work with people like repeat business. You only want them if they're good, if they're nice people, if you enjoyed working with them, if you guys connected, if you guys had a nice relationship, if you weren't combating all the time. You know what I'm saying? If you dealt with somebody that's very combative, you probably don't want to work with their friends and family, because their friends and family are probably just as combative. Unless they've got a $3 million property.
Exactly.
Oh my god.
In which case, you know,
Esplanade?
my love can be bought.
That was so awkward.
But yeah, so closing gifts. What's that book called, Johnny boy?
Giftology.
Giftology. Check out that book. Really, really cool. Really awesome. After John read that, I saw the quality of his gifts just like skyrocketed. You know, it's really funny to me to see other realtors on social medias and stuff showing up with the same gifts all the time. It's like always a bottle of champagne. I'm like, it's kind of like, it's almost like offensive how cliche it's become, the bottle of champagne at the notary. Unless you really know the person loves champagne, in which case, cool, get them a bottle of champagne. But like,
They don't appreciate it.
no, they're just like, cool,
Yeah.
whatever. If it's something that you picked up on during your time with them, like if you worked with a guy that was also a Duke fan or something,
That'd be sick.
and you bought him
Oh, no,
like, you know what I mean? And you got them like a special thing or whatever, or like, dude, it wasn't even a client gift. The client bought Delano a gift. And it was straight from Giftology, dude. So they built a relationship. They isolated that Delano was a Raptors fan. Got this guy a replica of the freaking championship ring.
Oh,
Get
yeah,
the
I remember.
I'm like, bro, that's insane.
Like I checked it out like 2 bills. It's not about the amount that they spend. It's
No,
just the
but-
fact that
It's the thought. It's always about the thought,
It's
right?
always
So
the
you
thought.
learn as you know, you're gonna build a relationship with these people. Like, I don't remember who said it. John, maybe you can help me out with this, but like, they're your best friends for a few weeks.
Yeah.
They're your best friends in the whole world for a few weeks. So you're going to learn a lot about them, and you can use that to really get them something meaningful for them. You know what I mean? Maybe they love their dog, so you get them like a nice new dog bed for the house or something like that. I don't know, you know, but like something nice and thoughtful. Like the bottle of champagne is so overdone.
Yeah.
bottle of champagne would be for people that you're like, oh yeah.
If you
like,
know nothing about them,
Okay.
like they just called you from like
I like
the lead that called you saying I want to buy a property,
Yeah.
and it's like I want to write an offer right now.
I
You
was
don't,
like-
you know nothing about this person. You write the offer, they accept it. You go to notary, bottle of champagne. I totally get it. Like
what makes champagne a good gift is when they go home to it. Like they walk in and there's balloons at their doorstep with a bottle of champagne.
That's
or something.
cool.
Then it's
That's
like,
okay.
okay,
Yeah, I like that.
That's different. That's
yeah, because then somebody had to go and set that up and stuff like that. That's really cool. Like there's a lot of thought behind that.
Exactly. Just for recommendations, adding your sphere to your follow boss, adding the birthdays, and
Birthdays.
the anniversary date, because that's 3 automated follow-ups that you don't actually have to do, because emails will be sent automatically.
Mhm.
So that's 3 follow-ups a year that you don't have to do at all.
Yep.
That follow-ups will do for you. So
Yep.
just keep in mind, you don't have to make the call.
Very
the
awesome.
email gets sent out.
Very, very awesome.
Even if you put the wrong birthday.
Oh, no.
Oh, yeah,
And then you call them. No, I had a
Oh,
client
shit.
send me a message, thank you so much, it's my birthday. Oh, yeah. And then she sent me like a whole breakdown of
Was
what's
it
happening in
Benji?
her life. It was so nice.
That's awesome. That's great, man. Even if you mess up the birthday, it's still
Swing and a miss, but somehow they don't work out.
But she still appreciated it.
Yeah, she's so appreciated. So just put random birthdays if you don't know.
But now you
Hilarious.
can try IDs for everything, so.
Yeah.
exactly, which is great. So you'll have their birthday, 100%. But yeah, you know, the sphere thing is definitely a separate training. But any other questions on the listing process A to Z in terms of, you know, etiquette, what to say, what to, yeah, please.
How do you deliver to a person that their property is gargantuanly overpriced respectfully?
Usually I like them to come to the conclusion themselves.
Okay.
So example I'll give you is, I don't like to do a listing presentation and then tell them what I think their property's worth.
Okay.
I do the listing presentation, I show them the comparables, and then I ask them.
Okay.
I say, given what we've seen here, where do you think we should price your property? Because it's a collaborative effort, right? A good transaction is like everybody's on the same team. You know, I'm on the team with my client. We're working together to get the house sold. So I show them properties that are selling for 650, 675, 660, 680, 650, 640. They're all the same house in the same area. And I'm like, great, these are the comparables. Given what we've seen, what do you think we should price the property at?
And to,
And then occasionally, you're gonna get people that are a little out of their whack a little bit, and they're gonna say, well, let me tell you something right now, Connor. These houses don't have crown molding. So there's that.
It's 40 grand.
And I'm like, okay, is there anything else maybe that you saw a big difference between your house and these houses? Yeah. These houses are the Arbright countertops. I imported this granite from Egypt. And I'm like, oh, damn, okay, that's pretty cool.
How does one verify granite
it's-
from Egypt?
That's a great question, by the way. And if you could formulate that without being just a touch
Yeah.
offensive, that'd be
Yeah.
sick. Well, and you know, and you can even come in from like an inquisitive perspective and say, okay, just for somebody that doesn't know, and if I'm gonna have to explain this to buyers, what do you think would be the main difference between granite that you'd buy from here versus granite that's imported? It looks better. Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, it's a great starting
I mean, that's fair enough. You know, you can say, okay, that's great, not a problem there. So how much extra value do you think both the crown moldings and the granite countertops are? Because I think I know, because I've flipped a couple properties, but how much do you think it adds in terms of value?
Oh, me?
Oh, this is the client, right?
Oh, okay.
We're imagining the client says, and he might say an astronomical number, but when you really break it down into itemized list, like this is crown moldings and a granite countertop, how much do you think that adds? They might say, you know, 20 grand. And you could say, okay, well, I think that's probably on the high end. But the good news is, you know, with the 20 grand, we're not breaking anything. We're not going way, way above what I think the property could still sell for. So why don't we do this? Let's meet in the middle. Let's call it 10 grand. I think that's a little more fair. So we'll add that to this comparable at 650 and you take it from there. But anybody that's evaluating the property at like, you gotta understand why. People have a story. So let them tell the story. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like they have a reason why they want to price their property at $750,000 when they know because you showed them it's facts, right? They know it's worth $670, but they want to list it at $750.
It's
Why?
always emotional, it's never logical.
Could be emotional, but it also could be logical. It could be that they're in financial duress and they actually need that $7 grand.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? And it could just be that, and they're just like, well, I'm not selling unless I get this amount of money. And then you can make a decision. That's an unmotivated person. You know, if it's they're just selling because they just want the number kind of thing, that's an unmotivated seller and not somebody that you really want to work with.
So could you tell them like, hey, why don't we price it here?
Yeah.
And then try and get some enhancements, hopefully get into a multiple offer situation and get that price bumped up. Can you-
Yeah, they'll almost never agree to that. Yes, it's got to be a very rational and a logical seller to agree to something like that. But you could say, okay, you know what? If you're really stuck on this idea of 750, I'll go along with it, and I'm going to put all of my effort into getting you that price. Now, if I don't get you that price in a couple of weeks, we know all of these comparables sold in 4 days. So we know if in 2 weeks we don't have offers, we know it's the price, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, perfect. So in 2 weeks, I'm gonna put in the contract that the price goes down to $6.99 in 2 weeks. Are we okay with that? Put it in the contract.
I love
Oh,
that.
yeah.
This is where over communication is key.
Yes.
Every week they're gonna get the counters, review those counters with them, where they see there's no favorites, no one is sharing it, like review with them, over communicate, so they can see it's overpriced.
There's
Yeah.
another important thing that we didn't touch on, which
Yeah.
I didn't think was important, but I realized it is
Yeah.
important recently, is putting the Bonzu sign.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I'm so sorry, man. Thank you, Marty.
Important.
Absolutely. So, notice this is one thing that the sign runner will not do. And we do this on purpose. We could easily have Mikey the sign runner do this, but we don't have him do it because it's such an opportunity for you to have a beautiful moment with your seller.
He's asking about cancel relist, when you reduce the price, is it better to cancel relist?
Yeah, it's a different thing. We'll talk about that after. The mic hears all the whispering. So, Von sign.
Yeah.
So important we do that in person. You know, even if you know you're going in the middle of the day or whatever, take a selfie with it and send it to them.
Let me
Yeah.
look at the
Have
installer.
some kind of interaction with them. If they're there, tell them, come on, I'm gonna put your Von sign up. Like, get them hype about the whole situation. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And if they're not there, cool, whatever, send them a selfie. Do something to involve them. Get them psyched about the whole process. What? Sorry?
Get them to send you a selfie.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, absolutely. Like, I sent you one. I want to see you guys standing in front of it after or whatever. You know, just cool shit. Just involve them. The Von sign is such a great moment.
And could that be a time where you give a gift as well?
No,
No.
you should probably do that at the notary.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. I mean, you could if you want to go ham. There's no wrong answer to that. You know,
Fair.
Like, whatever you want to do. But yeah, that's pretty much all I got for you guys. Any questions before we adjourn?
Oh, that was great. That was good for me.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Sweet. Thanks for coming, guys.